Hello, welcome to I Read This Book with Chris. With me, I'm Chris. Today we will be discussing To Open the Sky by Robert Silverberg. There we go. And while discussing that, I will be drinking seltzer with lime. To Open the Sky by Robert Silverberg. So first off, Robert Silverberg is one of my favorite sci-fi authors. I don't hear a lot of people discussing him. I don't know that he's made anything quite famous enough to be a household name. But he got me back into science fiction. I used to like science fiction back when I was a kid. And then more recently, 2018, 2019, something like that, I started reading again because I found a couple collections of Robert Silverberg's short stories. Pick him up if you get the chance. To Open the Sky is a weird book. It takes place throughout 5 different parts that are spread out over about 100 years. And during this, you see the religion or cult, whatever it may be, of the Vorsters spread quite rapidly. The Vorsters, I don't know that it hasn't, he gives it a name, Vorsterism, I guess. But the Vorsters, this religion was created by Vorst, who created it in order to lead the solar system, basically. And over these 5 stories, you see this religion start from a basement cult to ruling the earth, while at the same time, its schismatic counterpart, the Harmonists, rule Venus. Venus is quite different than Earth, and in order to survive there, people have to be genetically changed and surgically changed. They get gills, they become tall and blue, and their body is then able to survive in whatever strange atmosphere and all of that. The book ends with the Venetian Harmonists telekinetically pushing a spaceship with Vorst and a selected group of Vorster colonists to a nearby star that has a habitable world. And Vorst is sent off in order that Lazarus, who is the martyr who the Harmonist cult looked up to, who was resurrected, brought back to life by Vorst, can then go and reunite the schism and bring both worlds back together. So this is a book about creating a new religion, 2 new religions, but it's strange because there are multiple characters in here throughout this book, all the ones that we follow basically. Some of them get like some sort of religious experience, but all of them know it's basically just a big political game. A lot of the stuff is quid pro quo, and people give to the church in order that this church can then go and do scientific studies, and with these scientific studies can elongate life and create psychic abilities. This elongated life means that Vorst, even though he's the guy who originally creates this cult, exists and is still alive. One of the words I've been struggling with throughout this is trying to say, what is a cult versus a religion? And it's even stranger here. A lot of people say that basically a cult is like a new religion based off all sorts of strange things. It's a new religion, and then a religion is a cult where the cult master, the person who created it, is dead, which then makes you question if a cult is about creating immortality in this life, and the original guy is still alive. In what way can it move on? Which is why Vorst, recognizing this in order to allow it to keep going on without him, has sent himself out to be unable to contact Earth. I mean, they can contact, but it's, at the speed of light, it'll take many years to send and receive a message. You're not ruled by Earth. He can no longer rule all of these people on Earth or his religion there, although he can control his new colony. The original Vorster religion is not very religious. It's kind of like what religion would be to someone who doesn't believe in any crazy religious stuff. I mean, it's created by a guy who doesn't believe in it, but it has a lot of the markings of religion. I don't know. The Harmonists, who are the heretics who leave and create their own separate cult, who then rule Venus, they separate with the Vorsters over a couple of main things. One is the Vorsters wish to get into politics and to control politics. And the second is because they don't believe it's religious enough, and if someone wants to come and join, it's a weird thing to join a religion without a religion. Non-theistic religions exist, but there's still some sort of supernatural something. And there's not really anything like that there. So the harmonists create stories, create myths to have saints, lots of religious symbols in order to give their followers something to hold on to. But the whole thing, both sides, end up being ruled by people who don't really believe, not in the way that they're the general guy who would go to these temples would believe. It ends up being ruled by Lazarus, who basically, he was one of the people who originally started with Vorst. He was one of the earlier adopters, not early, but in the first 20 years or so. He worked his way up. He disagreed with Vorst, at which point he was killed, and Vorst put him in a suspension pod, sent him to Mars, where he could then be dug up 100 years later to then be a resurrected martyr. But he doesn't believe a lot of the stuff that his harmonists believe. But because he's brought back to life, and they're like, hey, this is the guy that we, worship or follow. I guess we should follow him now that he's brought back to life. It's a whole thing. At the end, we realize it was all predicted, prophesied, foreknown. Vorst has precognition. There's a lot of psychic abilities that go on, and Vorst has a little bit of it, not a whole lot, and he can see the future. And a lot of the people that can see the future, who have that psychic ability, die young, and as they are dying, their psychic power is the greatest, and he uses another guy to bridge the gap, and he's able to, with his little bit of precognition and their psychic ability, to see the future, so that he can know where to go next, how to plan the future. He doesn't have perfect foreknowledge, but he has enough to see, this is what I need to do, and then he makes up the steps in between here and there, and is able to get there. Here, Vorst is trying to make men immortal, and then use them to take over the galaxy, change the galaxy, colonize the galaxy, go to planets that we haven't been to before. Another book to compare to is Dune by Frank Herbert. So Dune is 1965, which is a couple years before this. You may know it by the movie that came out in 2021. Or the books. The books themselves are good. I've at least up to the first 3 books. Book 4 gets a little crazy. I don't know exactly the word that they use to describe it. But basically, a guy is destined to rule. Once again, that's at a galaxy-wide. Especially if you get later on in the series. I don't think it happens galaxy-wide in the first book. He is destined to rule the universe, and can do so through the control of the planet Dune, which creates spice, which allows people to travel, at the ability to travel from star to star. But spice allows you to see the future, and he uses the spice. In order to see the future, he becomes able to perfectly see the future due to a mix of spice and his heritage being from the Bene Gesserit, who are a religious cult planning to... people may hate me for saying it wrong. Bene Gesserit are a all-female religious cult whose goal is to create the one who will save the universe. And they do, but not on their own time schedule. They lose control. But in there, because he has the perfect ability to see the future in Dune, he knows this is the path I'm walking on. I'm going to create a war that's going to kill billions and billions of people, and I'm on this path. And then him seeing it, creates it, locks it in place. He's on this path. He goes down this path. There is no freedom in Dune. He does what he does because he has to. Here, this pre-knowledge that he has, the precognition, he doesn't see perfectly, but he sees enough in order to keep him on the right track. It's funny. There's the concept that when talking about history, there's the great man theory, right? That certain men, like Alexander the Great, like Genghis Khan, like Hitler, like Napoleon, like George Washington, like there are certain people who, in history, if they did not exist, history would be different. They are able to, because of who they are, whether it be good reasons or bad reasons, they are great men. Great does not mean good, but means powerful. They are able to use their will, their power, whatever it is, to shape the history of the world, which is often rejected it's not often, it's rejected by a lot of people because they're like, well, I don't know if one person can have such an impact. It goes back to what I was saying about what Marx was saying, which is that history has a shape. It goes from one thing to the next to the next. And maybe the shapes can be shaped slightly, but history bends towards justice. Why can't I think of that? Give me a second. It doesn't seem as if there's... The reason I can't think of a name, apparently, is there's not a single name for it. Some of them call them Marxist ideas, Marxist theory of history, or the great mass theory of history, or just the shape of history, you know. But these two concepts. It's funny, because in all of these books, there is... Not in all of these books. In Dune, it feels to me as if they are rejecting the great man theory of history, but are doing so based off of one man who comes up with the idea or is able to see the future. One man who creates psychohistory, which then allows people to see the future. And he obviously changed the world by being able to create psychohistory. Or the one person who can see the future in Dune, who's then able to, because of that, he's able to change everything because he can see the future. Once you open the sky, I don't think has any of this Marxist or structural concept of history that it's arguing against with this whole great man theory. Maybe that's just all a tangent. But I am interested in the idea of being able to see the future and how that changes how you act. Allows you to, whether you are trapped and destined to act in a certain way, or you can use it as stepping stones to allow you to get to where you want to go. Or whether you can use your knowledge of the future in order to change the future. I like a lot of time travel stuff, and none of this is time travel, but this foreknowledge, it's interesting. Anyway, To Open the Sky by Robert Silverberg, I'd pick it up. I think it's a pretty good read. It's enjoyable. Anything by Robert Silverberg, I don't think there are any that are... There's a list and people have their favorite, but there's none, I don't think, that are going to be super noticeable by whatever. But just pick any of them up. They're all pretty good. They're all enjoyable from what I've seen. Thank you for watching.